The crystal chandeliers cast cold light across the polished onyx conference table, their reflections splintering on the dark surface like shattered stars. Isabella Reyes, the brunette CEO whose sharp intellect and unwavering resolve had reshaped industries from Boston to Berlin, felt the walls closing in. A cabal of hostile shareholders had her trapped, a contract designed to gut her company laid before her like a final verdict. Unfamiliar security guards, their faces hard and impassive, locked the doors with chilling precision. The cameras in the corners of the room, one by one, blinked off, their small red lights extinguished in a silent, coordinated sequence. As Marcus Thorne, the lead conspirator, leaned forward, his face a mask of predatory triumph, the heavy mahogany doors behind him exploded inward. Owen Riley, a single father who spent his days in a janitor's uniform, stepped through the splintered frame. His simple work clothes couldn't conceal the coiled power in his stance or the lethal efficiency of his movements. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, cut through the suffocating tension. He spoke quietly, but each word landed with the force of a gavel. Hands off the lady. The room went utterly still, every breath held captive in the space between heartbeats, as if time itself had stopped to witness the impossible. Reyes' innovation soared 47 stories above the city, its sleek architecture a monument to the ambition and betrayal that fermented within its walls. The top-floor boardroom was a stage for billion-dollar triumphs and brutal corporate coups, but it had never seen a drama quite like this. Isabella Reyes had taken the helm of the company at 28, following her father's unexpected death. She had transformed his modest manufacturing firm into a global leader in sustainable technology, a move that threatened the old guard of the energy sector. Now 34, her striking beauty often led her rivals to misjudge the formidable mind behind it. Today, in a sapphire blue dress that was both elegant and authoritative, her objective was singular: to secure a groundbreaking R&D deal that would change the world, while defending the ethical, transparent culture she had fought so hard to build. But transparency creates powerful enemies. Isabella's refusal to cut corners or compromise her principles had left her isolated on her own board. For months, the sharks had been circling, twisting bylaws and poisoning investor sentiment. She was brilliant, determined, and profoundly alone in a room of smiling assassins. 3 floors below, in a small janitorial supply closet, Owen Riley checked his watch. At 36, he moved with a quiet economy of motion, a discipline learned in places far removed from corporate hallways. His hands were calloused, his shoulders broad, but a deep gentleness surfaced in his eyes whenever he thought of his 7-year-old daughter, Maya. The janitor job was meant to be anonymous, a shield. A steady paycheck and a predictable schedule were all he wanted while he pieced his life back together. Single fatherhood was an unforeseen mission, one that began 2 years ago when his wife was killed in a hit-and-run, trading deployment zones for the uncharted territory of school projects and scraped knees. His core principles, however, remained unchanged, forged in crucibles of fire and loss: never abandon the vulnerable. Never let the innocent stand alone. It was a code that had nothing to do with a job description and everything to do with who he was. Today was a fluke. He was covering a day shift for a sick colleague, a simple task of cleaning the executive suites. It shouldn't have been complicated. It shouldn't have interfered with his promise to pick up Maya from the building's childcare center at noon. Above them all, in the silent, airless boardroom, Marcus Thorne presided over his masterpiece of a conspiracy. At 40, he was lean and impeccably dressed, his silver tie matching the cold glint in his eyes. As the second-largest shareholder, he had meticulously woven this web over 18 months, using legal loopholes, financial pressure, and a network of compromised personnel. His plan was ruthlessly simple: force Isabella to sign away control, then carve up the company, selling its most valuable patents to the highest bidder. The other players performed their designated roles. Arthur Finch, the company's internal legal counsel, had a nervous tick and a talent for serving 2 masters. His legal wizardry had created the framework for this ambush. Genevieve Croft, the pragmatic CFO, observed with a carefully neutral expression, her loyalty a fluid thing, always flowing toward the prevailing power. Down in the IT department, Noah Chen, a young data engineer, frowned at his screen. The system logs were screaming at him. Anomalies he couldn't explain. unauthorized access attempts from internal terminals, strange gaps in the security camera archives, and the final, damning piece of evidence, a full copy of the entire R&D database had been downloaded at 2:17 in the morning. The plot had been seeded for weeks. Mysterious glitches plagued the security systems. The building's regular security team was shuffled, replaced by imposing men whose credentials seemed correct but felt wrong. The emergency meeting had been called with manufactured urgency, the documentation deliberately vague, leaving no time for proper review. When Isabella's assistant had informed her of the meeting that morning, her face was pale. Every instinct Isabella had honed in 6 years of corporate warfare screamed that it was a trap. She went anyway, her tablet holding the clean energy proposal that was her life's work, her heels clicking a defiant rhythm on the marble floor. Owen had just dropped Maya off at the childcare center, a bright, cheerful space on the 2nd floor. She had hugged him fiercely before running to join her friends. He promised he'd be back soon, a promise he intended to keep, despite the familiar, cold unease prickling his skin. It was the same feeling he'd gotten in the mountains of Cunha province, right before the world exploded. His trained senses, dulled by routine but never gone, picked up on the wrong details. The way 2 of the new security guards stood, their weight balanced on the balls of their feet, like fighters, not guards. The way their earpieces were a different model from the building's standard issue, a sign of a hastily assembled team. While mopping the corridor near the executive floor's utility closet, he noticed fresh scratches on the panel screws and, inside the trash receptacle nearby, discarded wire clippings and the plastic wrapper from a signal jammer. He memorized the details, a silent alarm ringing in his mind. He needed to understand the scope of the threat before revealing himself. The boardroom meeting began. Isabella was deliberately seated at the far end of the table, trapped. The smart glass windows turned opaque, sealing them off from the world. The doors locked. The cameras died. Arthur Finch began his presentation, a cascade of fabricated legal risks designed to justify an emergency transfer of power to a crisis committee led by Marcus Thorne. Isabella fought back, demanding independent review, but her motions were stonewalled with obscure bylaws and procedural traps. The pressure mounted, thick and suffocating. Thorne watched, a patient predator, as the contract was slid across the table toward Isabella. A heavy, gold-plated pen was placed beside it. Meanwhile, Owen stood by the utility closet. His decision was made. The training that had guided him through dozens of high-stakes missions surged to the forefront. He could try to fix the wiring, to restore communications, but it would take too long and he would be exposed. The risk calculation had shifted the moment he understood this was a coordinated attack on a defenseless person. His mind flashed back to a mission gone wrong. A 60-second delay that cost an informant his life. The weight of being too late had never left him. He had sworn it would never happen again. But then he thought of Maya, safe in the childcare center, but vulnerable if he made enemies of the powerful men on the 47th floor. The conflict between father and protector, between safety and duty, raged within him for exactly 3 seconds. Then he was moving. He ignored the wiring. The priority was the target. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his janitor's work boot silent on the concrete. The first guard found him on the stairwell landing. A brute with a shaved head and cruel eyes. The confrontation was brutally short. Owen used the man's momentum against him, a series of precise strikes to nerve clusters followed by a chokehold that rendered him unconscious in seconds. He bound him with his own zip-tie cuffs. The second guard, investigating the silence, met a similar fate, neutralized with a disarm and a joint lock that left him gasping on the floor. Owen reached the executive floor. The boardroom door was sealed. He didn't have codes or keycards. He had a set of master keys and a heavy-duty pry bar from his janitor's cart. A flaw in the high-tech magnetic lock system, designed for fire safety, allowed for a manual override if enough force was applied to a specific point. The conspirators, focused on locking the room from the inside, had overlooked the janitor's ability to get in from the outside. The heavy doors flew open with a crack of splintering wood, slamming against the interior walls like a thunderclap. Every head snapped in his direction. Shock. Fury. and on Isabella's face, a flicker of desperate, disbelieving hope. Owen stepped into the room, his presence radiating an authority that had nothing to do with a title or a suit. His eyes scanned the room, assessing threats, before locking onto Marcus Thorne. "Hands off the lady," he repeated, his voice unchanged, a low rumble of absolute certainty. Thorne recovered quickly, his lips twisting into a contemptuous sneer. "I think the help is lost. This is a private meeting. Get out before I have you thrown out." Owen ignored him, his gaze fixed on Isabella. He said, his tone respectful but firm. "The men posing as security outside this room are not employees of this building. The communication systems on this floor have been illegally tampered with. This meeting is being held under duress." The words gave Isabella the leverage she needed. She rose to her feet, her authority flooding back into her. "Mr. Finch, as legal counsel, you know that any resolution passed under conditions of coercion is legally void. I am suspending this meeting, effective immediately." Arthur stammered, his script rendered useless. That's baseless. A janitor's paranoia is not grounds for suspension." "Is this paranoia?" Owen asked, pulling the discarded signal jammer wrapper from his pocket and placing it on the table. "I found this in the trash by the tampered utility panel." He then looked at Noah Chen, the young IT engineer who'd been brought in as a technical witness. "And you, son? You've seen it too, haven't you? In the logs. Something big was downloaded from your servers in the middle of the night." Noah straightened, his moment of decision arriving. "He's right. At 2:17 this morning. The entire R&D database. The access point traces back to Mr. Finch's office terminal. The room imploded. Accusations flew. Finch's face went white as he babbled about routine data backups. Genevieve Croft, the CFO, seeing the tide turn, finally spoke. "Unauthorized data transfer of that magnitude constitutes a catastrophic fiduciary risk. I support the immediate suspension of this meeting." Marcus Thorne's mask of composure finally cracked. He pulled out his phone, his grey eyes burning with cold rage. He swiped to a photo and held it up. It was a live picture of Maya in the childcare center, taken from a hidden angle. "Accidents happen," Thorne hissed, his voice a low, venomous whisper. "Terrible, tragic accidents. Especially with children." The air went ice-cold. Owen's hands clenched into fists, every fiber of his being screaming to cross the room and end the threat. But his training held him in check. Violence now would make him the criminal and let Thorne walk away. This was no longer about a company. It was about his daughter. Isabella's reaction was immediate. She pulled out her own phone and dialed a number. "Commander Rostova, this is Isabella Reyes. I know you're off-site, but we have a Code 7 on the executive floor. There is a direct threat against a child in the daycare facility. Her name is Maya Riley. Lock it down. Now." She saw the question in Owen's eyes. "Commander Eva Rostova," she explained quietly. "Head of building security. Her husband was Army Special Forces, killed in action 3 years ago. I sponsor an educational trust for their kids. She knows what it means to protect a soldier's family." The revelation landed like a depth charge, forging an unspoken alliance between the CEO and the janitor. Thorne's threat had backfired spectacularly. "Mr. Thorne," Isabella said, her voice like ice. "You've just committed a federal crime. Threatening a minor. That alone invalidates this entire proceeding. There's also the matter of the men you hired," Owen added, his voice conversational. "When they wake up, I'm sure they'll be happy to tell the police who paid them. Conspiracy charges get complicated." Thorne's phone rang. His lawyer, his voice tinny and panicked. Commander Rostova, a force of nature in her own right, had not only locked down the daycare but had also immediately contacted her liaisons at the FBI. Federal agents were already in the building. "There's one more thing," Isabella said, tapping her tablet. "When your men cut the cameras, you forgot about the audio-only backup system. It's routed through a different server. We have a full recording of this entire meeting, including your threat against Mr. Riley's daughter. The trap was complete. Thorne's own words, his own arrogance, had sealed his fate. I want my lawyer, he whispered, the words hollow. He's probably going to be busy, Owen observed dryly. The FBI likes to hit all targets in a conspiracy at once. The boardroom doors opened again. This time, it wasn't one man, but a team of federal agents in blue jackets. They moved with quiet efficiency, securing the room, reading rights. Marcus Thorne, who had walked in expecting to become a king, was led out in handcuffs. Arthur Finch was apprehended trying to blend in with the terrified board members. Genevieve Croft was already on her laptop, cooperating, documenting every fraudulent transaction she knew of, saving herself. Amid the chaos of agents collecting evidence, Owen slipped out. His job was done. He had a promise to keep. But Isabella found him by the service elevator. "Thank you," she said. The words felt impossibly small for what he had done. "Just doing my job," he replied, a reflexive deflection. "Your job is to clean floors," she countered gently. "You did more than that. I looked at your application file. It was mostly blank. No references, just a list of temp jobs. Why here, Owen? A man with your skills, why work as a janitor?" He looked away for a moment. "Sometimes you just need a quiet place. A job where no one gets hurt. A job that lets you pick up your daughter from school every day." The elevator arrived. As he stepped in, Isabella held the door. "I'm going to need a new head of security. Someone I can trust. Someone who understands that protecting a company really means protecting its people. The job comes with a full benefits package. An educational trust. And the absolute understanding that family comes first." Owen thought of Maya, of a stable future, of a life without the constant worry of just getting by. He thought of duty, and of the woman standing before him, who had shown more courage than most men he'd ever known. "I'll consider it," he said, but the ghost of a smile on his lips told her his answer. "Good," she said, stepping back. "By the way, your daughter is with Commander Rostova in the executive lounge. She was telling the other kids stories to keep them calm. Something about brave soldiers on secret missions." The doors began to close, but he heard her final words. "She's a lot like her father." He found Maya in the lounge, sitting with Eva Rostova, a woman whose steady gaze held a universe of shared understanding. Maya saw him and her face lit up. She ran and threw her arms around his waist. "Daddy! They said it was a drill, but I knew it wasn't. You taught me what real emergencies feel like. So I helped the little kid stay calm. Was that good?" "You were perfect, sweetheart," he said, holding her tight, the crushing weight of what he had almost lost settling on him. Isabella appeared in the doorway, her shoes gone, the powerful CEO replaced by a tired, triumphant woman. "Miss Maya," she said, crouching down. "Your daddy is a hero." Audrey shook her head with the simple wisdom of a child who has known loss. "He doesn't like being called that. He says the heroes are the ones who don't come home. He came home. He's just daddy." Isabella's eyes met Owen's over the little girl's head, and in that moment, a bond was forged, a bond of shared loss, sacrifice, and the fierce, unending duty to protect. Later, as Owen buckled Maya into the passenger seat of his beat-up sedan, Isabella approached. "The offer stands, Owen. Head of security. But it's more than a job. It's a chance to build something right." He nodded, his decision made. Monday morning. 8:30 As he drove away, he saw her in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the vast concrete garage, watching them go. The radio was already buzzing with the news of a failed corporate takeover, but they would never know the real story. They would never know it came down to a janitor who refused to be late, and 4 simple words that changed everything. Owen reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. She squeezed back, already lost in a new book Isabella had given her. The sun broke through the clouds as they exited the garage, flooding the car with a light that felt like a new beginning. Behind them, Reyes' innovation stood tall against the sky, no longer just a cold monument of glass and steel, but a place where integrity had a protector. The battle was won, not for power or profit, but for the simple, unshakable truth that when evil closes in, a good man must stand up and say the words that matter. Hands off the lady.